How you
I
doing,
can.
pal?
I'm doing well, man. I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Yeah, same to you. Happy holidays, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Good. I'm just busy, a little tired, and I've been hitting the gym a lot too, so my body's a little tender.
So that's what I like to hear. It's funny. The last interview we did, I had a bit of man flu, and amazingly, I've not been ill since then. And now we're about to have an interview, and I've got more man flu.
Mm,
So
yeah,
it's just this time of year, I suppose. But yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
I'd normally go to the gym, but like I say, this flu's doing me in. So.
yeah. No,
Uh,
just trying to stay fit in my clothes.
that's it. And you just feel good.
Yeah, that too. I guess that's another benefit of it.
I do have a few questions to go through because humans really left an impression on me this year. So I've got quite a few questions. So
I saw that, and thank you for being such an avid supporter and vocal about it. It's great, especially coming from someone like you who's very opinionated about his music. I like
hmm,
that. It means a
passionate.
lot.
I am a passionate person, but
Mm.
um, I always try. And if again that passion, I always try and push that passion where I can as best I
Mm.
can. So
Right.
so. Um, I'll just throw in some like warm questions, but
Let's throw it in. Let's go.
these are ones kind of like leftovers from last time, which I didn't really think about. So when the letting go and two era,
Mhm.
when all that mainstream success was thrown at you, how how did you handle that as a person, and how do you think you handled it looking back on it now?
That's a good question. I talk about this with some of my friends, or have anyway. And I don't know if I mentioned it in our the last time we spoke, but I was never a singer in a band. I was always a guitar player. And so I had to overcome a lot of different challenges. I had to overcome joining a band where I was the singer, where nobody knew that I hadn't been a singer in a band before. Um, but I was doing it and it was sounding good and everybody was happy and everybody was liking it and labels were liking it. And so once I got over that obstacle, when we got to the recording, that was another challenge I had to overcome. Like now I'm going to be put under a microscope doing something that I don't really have little to any experience doing at all. But then I overcame that. And then once we got on the road, I had to work with, what do I do? I'm standing on stage with no guitar, with just a microphone, and again, doing something that I have relatively little experience with. And so it was it was a challenge. It took it took a lot of me getting used to the fact that this was happening. Like this is it, it was kind of surreal. I just remember, I think because of all of those things, I always stayed, it kept me very humble, right? It kept me, I, my own worst critic. And I have a lot of self talk, as we probably all do. But there was always a part of me that reminded me that, this is new territory for you. Like, so I took it as sort of me being fortunate enough to be able to be in the position that I was in, doing what I was doing, and that it was having success. So it was a little, in the beginning, it was a little bit of trying to find myself. And then as we got to the second record, after all the touring and, and writing the new songs for two, that's when I began to get really comfortable and sort of found myself as a vocalist, an artist in that regard. And I've just kind of, over the years, I've always continued to be better. I listen, occasionally I'll listen to our older records. I listen a lot to the stuff that I'm working on. I'm always trying to be better than I was before, and always trying to find things about myself as an artist and a vocalist more than I did before. So I don't know, that was a long answer to your question, but
No, it's
that's
good.
kind of been the trajectory for me.
So, so a couple of things off that. Um,
Yeah.
so, like not being it, like so you've never sang before. I find that really strange. Like I've like
Mm.
tried singing and it's just really unnatural to me. Did it come naturally to you?
No, in fact, in the rehearsal space that we had at the time, it was a very controlled environment, and we only had like 3 or 4 songs back then. And a lot of those songs, I had some lyrics to, and the rest of it was just kind of me mumbling melodies. But when it came to playing live, my voice would be gone after 3 or 4 songs. Like I would literally have no voice left, and then I'd have to take 2 or 3 days for it to sort of come back. So when we signed our deal with Warner Brothers, I eventually confided in my A&R guy, Matt Aberly, at the time, and I said, "Listen, I'm blowing my voice out, and it's because I've never sang really in a band before, and so I'm sure it's probably because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing." And so he sent me to take vocal instruction from. I mean, I had no idea at the time the caliber of vocal coach that he was setting me up with, but it was a gentleman by the name of Ron Anderson. And I had no idea who Ron Anderson was, other than he was a vocal coach that I was being sent to. But when I got there and I went into his studio, and he had record plaques, with personalized thank yous from Elton John, Michael Jackson, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, uh, on and on and on. Stevie Nicks. I mean, I think I spent the first 20 or 30 minutes asking him questions about all of these different singers, and asking them what their challenges were, if they were the same as mine. And to some degree they were. A lot of it had to do with, learning how to sing, how to pace yourself, how to technique. It's like going to the gym almost, kind of. And so Ron really taught me how to sing. Now, he didn't change the sound of my voice, as he always reminded me, the sound of your voice is the sound of your voice. But what he taught me is how to use the voice that I have, and how to, how it really requires the cooperation of your whole body. It's all mechanics, and it's a feeling. It's not necessarily what you're hearing, it's what you're feeling. um it, I couldn't have been a luckier non-singing guy that got the best vocal teacher in the world.
Yeah.
And so that really gave me a confidence boost, and it was a big piece of how I developed my confidence over the years, and still do. I still use the same techniques that he taught me, and I, he recorded every session, and would give it to you to take home. And so I have tons of tapes, and I once in a while will go back to them and just run through them, and it's great.
Hmm. Yeah. Cool. Um. So, what? During that long period where you shut wrong like hiatus, what were you doing like to keep yourself busy?
Oof. Well, I did a lot of drinking during that time. um, the music business is tough, and it was especially tougher on me then mentally and emotionally, just because I'm such a perfectionist. And, back then I never really did very well with change. Um, Not that I do perfect with it today, but back then I was just, any little change of anything just would set me off course. And so besides drinking, I, a good friend of mine, lined me up with some work with Live Nation. And so I did a bunch of stage managing, production managing. I worked a lot of festivals. Um, and that was really cool because I got to interact with a lot of the bands that we used to tour with. And it wasn't hard work. It's basically logistics planning, the same stuff that I do in my own band. Super easy. And so I was fortunate enough that, I got offered such a thing to do in the downtime that I had. And so I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And then toward the tail end of that, I got a phone call flying back from a show that I was working in Houston back to LA. I got a phone call from one of my old tour managers asking me where I was and was I interested in, or had I ever thought about tour managing? And I said I had never thought about it, although I was doing stage managing and production managing, which is just below a tour manager. And he had a he had an artist that needed a tour manager that he was slated to do but couldn't do it last minute. And I said, sure. I said, who's the artist? And he said, Peter Murphy. And I went, Peter Murphy? Like Bauhaus Peter Murphy? He was like, yeah. And so I I'd never tour managed a band outside of, co tour managing my own band. So that was a big jump for me, although it wasn't a whole lot different than what I was doing with Live Nation, except for now I was in charge of the whole thing, right? Like I was in charge of making sure we had budgets for the tour, making sure that we stayed within the budget, making adjustments if it looked like we were starting to go over budget, making sure we had hotels, making sure everybody had flights, um, making up day sheets to let everybody know where they needed to be at certain times, what times, load-ins were, what times sound checks were, what times show times were, what times meet and greets were, what time interviews were. Like you're in charge of all of those things. So I got into that and I tour managed Peter for about a year and a half. I did a handful of tours for him. North America, we did South America, we did a few shows in China. Um, and then after that, I got a call from the band UFO, which was another one. I was like, "Holy crap!" That was probably one of the most to date memorable tours. They're so hilarious and so talented too, but
Mm.
just so funny, so funny, and the stories they had were just priceless. Um, and then shortly after that, I got a call from another old tour manager of mine that he broke his ankle or something. I don't remember what it was, but he called me and he knew that I had been doing some tour managing. So he called me and asked me if I was available, and I said, "Sure." Who's the artist? And he said, "The Misfits." And I went, "Holy fuck!" So I just in that regard, I just always got lucky with getting to work with these really cool, iconic artists, and really, I would say that was like a gift from the gods for me because what what happened was is not only was I helping them with their tour and making them comfortable and making them as much money as they could make, which was is really difficult to do because touring is the only lifeblood of artists nowadays.
Yeah.
um, and trying to figure out ways where we can cut back on certain things and or do certain things to make a little more. But the cool thing for me, what I got out of it, um, was being able to listen to their journey, like their story that most people will never hear about, um, and getting to really see the kind of people that they really are underneath all of the show fodder and the rock stardom, just how down to earth and genuine and human all of these guys are, which are arguably, some of the most iconic artists of the last 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And really, I guess what always struck me was there were so many moments where I went, fuck, I thought it was just me, but these guys are going through the same things, the same stresses, the same anxieties. And I would have never thought that they, at the level that they're at, would ever or still be challenged with those same anxieties and worries. And so it kind of made me feel a lot better about myself as not just an artist, but as a human. And especially Jerry Only from the Misfits. I mean, he is one of the most sincere, genuine, like his generosity and his heart is absolutely not performative. Like it is who he is. He is blue collar, salt of the earth, real deal, 1,000,000% heart. Like he's just one of the most amazing people I think I've ever met in my lifetime. Like he's just really that amazing of a person. And he demonstrated to, I think, a lot of people, like, if you think being a rock star is being on stage and all the lights and that's part of it. But the real rock star part that I got to witness so many times with him was him taking the time to take 100 shirts, sign them all, and then just hand them to people, right? Or take 100 posters, sign every single one with a note, and give them to all the stage hands at shows. Just things like that constantly. Just give, 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 give. And I remember in the beginning, I said, why are we giving all of this away? Like, and he just shrugged his shoulders and he said, because, kid, what else are we doing here? Yeah. And it really changed my whole perspective. He's such the unusual rock star icon.
Hmm.
Um, it showed me that you can be both genuine and human and down to earth and still be bigger than life.
Hmm. Moving it on to you as well. I don't know if you're a believer in fate or things happening for a reason, but
Yeah.
I definitely, just from what you're saying there, it feels like you learnt a great deal, which obviously would really benefit you with your shop coming back now.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it really changed. Um, it just changed. There's a lot of times as an artist, or maybe it's just as a human in general, where you go, or you wonder to yourself, like, am I doing the right things? Is it normal to feel about these things the way that I feel? Is it normal for me to think about them in the way that I think about them? um am I not doing enough of something? Am I doing too little of something? Right? And the answer to that is, it there is no right answer. It's just, it all comes back to just being true to yourself. And I think that's the thing that I learned working with each of those artists is they are, for better, for worse, whatever your opinions are of them personally, professionally, musically, they're being who they are. They know who they are, and they make no apologies about who they are. And I admire that. I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I mean, there were times, for example, with Peter Murphy, where I would just be so frustrated at times and incensed, but I respected him because he was being him. And I didn't always agree with him, but he was being him and he had his own convictions about why he wanted to do certain things the way he wanted to do them. And again, whether I agreed with them or not is irrelevant, but he had no fear. Same with Jerry Only, same with the UFO guys. They have no fear about being who they are and just saying, here I am. Like, take it or leave it. Not really concerned about it. This is what I do. And this, and to probably a large extent, that's why they're able to create the kind of art that they create and the music that they create that connects. It's because there's that genuine spark behind it, you know, that you can't see, you can't feel it, you can't hear it. It's just there. You know, it's just like a spirit that just moves into you. And I think you only get that when you're in that genuine, sincere place. So absolutely. I mean, it taught me that I can do the same. And that requires being vulnerable, right? Because there are going to be people that don't agree with you. There are going to be people that don't like you. There are going to be all kinds of people that will say things that can potentially derail you. But if you know who you are and you're sure about who you are and you're doing what you do, then again, none of that really matters in the end.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Great answer. Uh, you so you had a fairly big tour with Saliva.
Yeah.
Was it September, October? So was that the first tour you've had in many years, like of that scale?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's
So, firstly,
yeah,
was obviously was it a good tour?
it's a great tour.
Hmm?
Had a lot of fun. Um, it's funny. I've known Brad Stewart, the bass player, for many years, dating all the way back to when he was the original bass player in Puddle of Mud. I know a lot of people don't know that, but he was the original bass player, and that's when I first met him. And then once he left Puddle of Mud is when he started Shinedown with Brent.
All right.
And so I've known him through all those years. And so Saliva doesn't really tour Los Angeles much. They don't come here much. Los Angeles is a tough market for the kind of music that we do.
Why is
Unless
that?
I'm not really sure. I think people in LA are mostly interested in the bigger, more known bands. They're not as interested in discovery. Um, I
That's
think I'm not
crazy.
really sure what.
It's crazy
Yeah, I'm
because
not.
both of you guys are like, well, you've been big acts over the years, so that's crazy to me. That.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's honestly. I don't know what the reason is. I mean, if you're, even when Seven Dust came through here a couple years ago, they played the Wiltern. I think it was about maybe half sold, three quarter. I mean, it looked good, but anywhere else in this country, the place would have been packed, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just LA is a weird, tough market, similar to New York City. Um, so Saliva doesn't come to LA much, and earlier this year, and I think it was February, I saw that they were coming through. So I called Brad Stewart and he's like, yeah, dude, come down. Love to see you. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And also Bobby, the singer, we had never met before. And somehow we had gotten each other's phone numbers and we'd occasionally send a text back and forth. And he'd usually send me a like a screenshot, like if Earshot song came on and but we never actually met in person or talked on the phone. And so when they came to town, I wanted to see Brad, but then I also got to meet Bobby. So I met him the first time. I went onto the bus and we sat down and visited. And then a few months later, Bobby texted me and said, oh, because I sent him a link to the new album, Humaning, before it was mixed. We had discussed, that we had just finished recording, and he was like, "Dude, I would love to hear it. I'm a huge fan. Loved both your records. Would love to hear it." And so I sent him a link to check it out, and he wrote me back. He's like, "Dude, I love this. Like, this sounds phenomenal. It's maybe some of your best work. No kidding." And he goes, "Are you down to tour, this summer or early fall?" And I said, "Sure." And so that's how that ball got started. Also, he also when we were talking about logistical stuff with the tour, he's the one that brokered and brought up the idea of us doing the deal with Judge and Jury Records, which is Howard Benson's label, which we're going to have more new music coming out soon on that. So
Cool.
he brokered that, and he's just been so helpful to me. And I asked him, I think it was a few weeks after we started talking and all this stuff started happening. I said, I don't know what I did, for you to want to jump in and help, but I appreciate it. And it was a great tour. It was a lot of fun. It was, cool getting to know them, and they're a great band live, obviously. Their fans love them, and luckily, their fans loved us too. And it was good to get all the positive feedback that we got from new fans. Some of our old fans were there too. So all in all, I would say the tour was a success, 100%.
Did you have any sort of reservations? Kind of like butterflies, the thought that maybe you might have lost it um, playing again? No?
No, not at all. In fact, um, live, especially live, like I feel like I'm even better than previously, because now as I mentioned earlier, now I've had so much time to really figure out who I am as a person, as an artist, and really, really just sing. I've just been singing on different things. I did some stuff with George Lynch that I told you about. I've done some stuff with some other. I'm always working on something that's not earshot related. That's a little different, or in some cases, a lot different than what I do. I love playing music. I love singing. I love writing. It's what I do. And I've been doing that all through the hiatus. I've always done that. So I remember the first show on the Saliva tour. It's just like when we do these festivals, these one off festivals that we've done. I have no butterflies, no anxiety. Like, I feel really calm, confident, um, and with this feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's
This
great.
is what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, no, so in that regard, I felt great. And I think that, something that happened on this tour that's never really happened to this degree is that because I was so comfortable and confident and just calm, I was able to connect better with fans in the crowd from stage. I was able to talk with them and share things, and um, just really connect. And also, the other interesting thing that I mentioned to a few friends of mine, this happened a lot. Like, there were so many nights where I'd be singing Not Afraid or Getaway or Headstrong or any of the songs. And as I would be singing these songs, in my head, I would get this feeling, and in my head, I'd go, "Holy shit. I know what this song's about now." And what I mean by that is a lot of times most of the time, when I write lyrics, I'm just writing down like conscious stream of thought and emotions, right? I have no idea. I mean, maybe I have like an idea of something that spawned maybe a line or a word, but usually I have no idea what exactly something is about. Like I can tell you what inspired it, but that's not always what the song's about. The song, I realized, is the emotions underneath the topic of what I wrote the song about, right? So if it's about a relationship that's been having to let go of, it's not that that's what inspired the song, but what the song is really about is what's happening under the hood of that. And so there were many times on this tour I went, holy fuck, I know what this song's about. And it's not about this person or that person. It's about all of these things that I've been experiencing, what they mean. And what was really interesting was like I connected with my own songs in some way, in a way that I'd never been able to before, lyrically. And there were a few moments where I got heavy chested, like holy, like it really dialed up and stirred up some emotion in me. And it made me have a whole new appreciation and respect for the songs that we've created, over the years. And also, not to pat myself on the back, but also proud of myself for being able to be vulnerable enough to write some of these things that I write about, because now that I see them, now I'm able to see what other people see in the songs. When they tell me that song changed my life or it helped me with this, I'm able to see that. I could never see that before. Like people would say that, and of course I would be grateful that I could help in some way, right? But I never really understood like what they meant by that until, which is probably maybe strange to some people to hear, maybe not, but because they're like, dude, you fucking wrote the song. Like, how did you? But it's just what I said. There are things that inspire a song, but it's really what's underneath those inspirations
Yeah.
is really what it's about. And it was interesting because it was almost like I was writing little clues and messages to myself way back then that I'm just now decoding after all these years
That's
after
great.
writing them out. So yeah, interesting, really, really
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up like anecdotes from bands that you'd managed, and that's like you talk about UFO having great stories. One of the questions
Mhm.
I've got is, are you able to share like one story, like a funny tour story, or something that was a bit bizarre that happened from back in
Well,
the day?
from my band or with the other bands that I worked with,
No,
or
no,
both.
in a earshot. Oh, both, yeah.
So for us, God, um, well, so we had this bus and bus driver for a couple of years, and in touring, like once I find a bus driver that I feel safe with, because a bus driver, I mean, they're carrying, our lives are in their hands essentially,
Mm.
and so safety's a big thing to me, and also, if I could sit up front in the bus with the driver while we're driving and be able to have a conversation, I like that too. Like I like being able to be personable, and I like people that can be personable with me. Um, so we had this driver Ron, and the way it works in with bus companies is they assign a driver to a bus and that's it. So you can't just go, I want this bus, but I want that driver. It's not the way it works. Um, so the bus, it had some. It was a newer bus, but we kept having issues with the air conditioning, which the electrical in it, and they would fix it. And it would work for a little while, and then it would break again. So we got a new tour manager who was great. He was a tour manager slash sound guy, and he was phenomenal. Great job. Great friend of mine still today. And when he came on, for some reason, him and the bus driver didn't get along at all. Like they went outside and like were shouting at each other, and I had to go out there, and I just couldn't figure it out because they were both really good people, smart, intelligent, very personable, genuine, and it was a head scratcher. And so my tour manager would pull me aside and say, "Hey, let's get a new bus. This bus keeps, with the air conditioning, and I can get us a better bus." And I just would tell him no. That means we have to get a new driver. I like the driver we have, and the bus is great. It was a great bus. It just had a couple little quirks to it, but um, so he tried to get me to change buses a few times, and every time I said no, we're not switching. So one morning I woke up, and there was a bunch of commotion, and what had happened is our bus driver was parking the bus, and he hit a street light with the bus mirror, and it broke the bus mirror off. And so I woke up and I went out there, and there was, all this little drama out there, and the bus driver explained to me what happened. And so he pulled me to the side privately, and he said, "Listen, man," he goes, "I'm just tired." He was an older gentleman, and he'd been out with us for like 2 years. He's like, "Listen, I'm tired." He goes, I can't believe that I did that. Like, what a rookie move. I've never hit anything. And I was like, yeah. He goes, so he kind of smiled. He goes, "I'm going to let your guy have his day. He can change buses now because I need to take a little break." And I said, "All right." So we lined up a new bus, and the bus driver had one more small run the bus company asked him to do. It was like a week-long thing before he took his hiatus. And it was for the band Real Big Fish. And so we leave Ron in the bus, and we get this new bus. We got a new great driver. And about maybe 4 or 5 days after we left that bus, we pulled into the next city. We got to the hotel, and I was going to meet my tour manager for lunch after we got settled into our hotel. And as soon as I walk in the room, the phone rings in the hotel, and it's my tour manager, and he goes, "Dude, you got to get over here right away." So I put my stuff down. I go over to his hotel room. He opens the door, and his eyes are just huge. He's like, "Dude, check this out." And I go in his room, and he's got the TV on, and it's a live broadcast from like CNN, or I don't know remember what news, but it was like a big news channel. And on the screen is our old bus that we just left, and it was completely burned to the ground.
Oh.
And then it switched to my driver Ron. They're interviewing him, and then under his name, it says Hero and blah blah blah. And so what had happened was, evidently, is he had been driving all night. The band and crew were asleep on the bus. He pulled in. It was like 4:35 in the morning, and he had gone in to do laundry, and then he would get something to eat. That's what he would do in his routine. Um, Usually he would eat first and then do laundry, but on this day he did his laundry first before he went to go eat. And luckily, that's what he did, because when he came out from putting his laundry in, he noticed black smoke billowing out of the bus, and he knew everybody was asleep. So he ran onto the bus and literally pulled everybody out. So nobody died or anything, luckily, but because he hadn't gone in to eat first, he was able to see that the bus was on fire. And he literally told me, I talked to him a little while after that he literally had maybe a minute or two. He got everybody off, and then the bus just like evaporated. And so that was a crazy story. It was almost like my tour manager sort of saved us from that fate of that. He was really pressing, like, we got to get off this bus. And I just remember thinking, God, what is this deal with the bus? Like,
Yeah.
So just, that was probably the most craziest thing. There's probably a couple more in there that I'm not thinking about now, but that was one of the crazy ones where I was like, wow, like we really dodged a bullet there.
Like you say,
Um,
weird how he's got his own routine and goes out with that routine. Uh,
yeah,
it ends up saving the
mhm.
guys. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mm.
Um, I think the funniest non-earshot tour stories with the UFO guys. They claim, and I know that there have been a lot of bands in the past that claim this, but they swear, Phil Mogg swears up and down that Spinal Tap was was inspired in part by them. Now,
Right.
there's a there's a big part of me that believes it because they are fucking hilarious people. And the funniest shit just happens to them all the time. But even on the tour that I worked with them on, I think that tour was only like 2 months long, which for them is short. But I remember they were really tired and we had a day off, 2 days off coming up. And they were like, man, we just need to go down for a couple of days. And so I went and I called my travel agent and I said, listen, can we find like a really nice, quiet boutique, like hotel for these guys so they can get some good rest and like enjoy a couple of days off. So she found this, I forget what city we were in, but we found this. She sent me this hotel and it was really nice. It had like private bungalow suites, right? And I was like, perfect. They'll love that. So she confirmed it and I shared it with the guys and they were ecstatic. They were like, oh my God. They're like, mate, they're like, thank you so much. This looks unbelievable. And then we got there and they checked in and they came back to the bus like, dude, these rooms are amazing. They're like little houses. And then there's like a garden, like a peace garden, like a Zen garden. And I'm like, awesome. And they were like, I was the man, right? So the rest of us, the rest of the crew, we didn't stay there because it was pretty pricey. So we stayed at a hotel a mile away. And so I picked them up on the second day to go to the venue and they all came on the bus and they just looked disheveled and like, and I'm thinking they just had 2 fucking days off in these nice bungalows with the Zen garden, right? Like what pot? So they come on the bus and I'm like, guys, I'm like, what's up? You guys look more tired than when I left you. And then Andy Parker, the drummer, goes, oh mate, he's like, everything was great. He's like, I just fallen asleep, and then the walls started shaking, and then the pictures were moving. He says, and I go, what happened? He's like, there was a Mexican wedding, and they had a whole band out, and it was all night long with the Mexican music. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, we've hardly had any sleep. This went on for 2 days, the 2 days that we were there. And I was like, what are the odds a
Yeah.
mariachi band was going to come in there on 2 days for a wedding? So that was one. And then the next one came like a few days later. We were in Dallas and they, my travel agent put them in a penthouse. So trying to make up for the 2 days that they had the mariachi band keep them up all night, put them in penthouses on the 22nd floor of this hotel in downtown Dallas. And so again, I picked them up to take them to the venue because they would like to go to the hotels and hang out there before sound check. So they came down. They're like, mate, it's like, these hotels are phenomenal. Like, you're killing it with the hotels. So we go, we play the show, and they wanted to go back early to the hotel to relax because they had nice penthouse suites. So we ran a little late, and typically what they would do is after the show, they'd sign autographs and stuff, and then I would take them in the bus back to the hotel and they would just grab a quick shower and grab their bag. And they were very prompt, very on time. Like they didn't lollygag around and they were always consistent with that. So on this night, brought them back to the hotel. They went up. 20 minutes went by, which is about the time they usually would be back. 20 minutes went by, nothing. 30 minutes went by, nothing. 40 minutes went by, still nothing. And now I'm getting concerned. And so I tried calling, nothing. 45 minutes goes by, nothing. Hour goes by. I see somebody coming down. I'm like, oh, finally they're here. So I see one and then I see another one coming. And So I got off the bus to help them with their bags, and I go, "Is everything okay?" And they're like, they look all sweaty, right? And I'm like, "What? What's happening? Like, what? You guys took a lot longer than usual." They're like, "Well," Andy Parker goes, "You never believe it." He goes, "But," he's like, we got up the elevator into the rooms, and just as we were getting ready to pack, the power went out in the hotel." He's like, "I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black." He goes, "I was using my phone as some kind of light. That's why I didn't answer the phone when you called." He's like, "It took us forever." And then he goes, "We couldn't get down. We're on the 22nd floor, mate." He's like, "There was no elevator." He's like, "So we waited and waited." And he goes, "Finally, it took us 20 minutes to walk down 22 flights of steps with our bags." But I'm like laughing, but they're laughing too because they can't even believe it. And then Phil Maugg was like, "See, I told you, they made Spinal Tap after us." And I go, "Dude, I get it now." But it was just they just had that kind of luck where just things would just the perfect thing would somehow
Go a
get
bit
a little
sour.
knocked off. But they were good sports about it. Like they never got mad. They would laugh it off. They'd pour a glass of wine or a beer and laugh about it, and then they would talk about other times that similar things happened to them. So it wasn't anything new to them. But to me, like I was just laughing. I mean, I was just like who does that happen to? Like they
Mm,
just the funniest things. But anyway, those are a couple of the stories that always stand out in my mind when I think
that's
of
great.
funny tour stories or weird, odd tour stories.
I appreciate that. That's great.
Ooh,
Um, right, we'll get on to what has turned out to be one of my favorite albums of this year. So, um, what surprises me, it's not to disparage the genre of music itself, but I don't feel like this sort of music with a lot of bands. There's not like it's great, but there's not a great deal of depth. I don't think. But this album, like genuinely, you alluded to it last interview we had about being the best thing you've done. Like when I first listened to it, I was like, I can see potential. And then when I reviewed it, I was like, I think it's just a bit better than two. But
yeah.
now I've been listening to your whole discography the last few weeks on shuffle, and whenever a Humaning song pops up, I'll just like sit there and go, fucking hell, like the quality is just leaps and bounds above anything else you've done. So
Yeah.
to shorten what I'm saying, basically, it's an amazing album. So the
Thank
first
you.
question is the album title Humaning. What is
Mm.
it to be humaning?
So this is how the album title came about. So I not every Sunday, but a lot of Sundays, I go to church. I was raised Catholic. My great grandmother raised me, and she was a devout Catholic, and she was one of the most beautiful people I've ever known in my life. And she just had a huge heart. Um, it's interesting. A lot of people that I know that grew up Catholic similarly have a different experience of it than I had. I understand that for most people, the Catholic religion is very fear based, just much like Christianity. If you do this, you're going to hell. If you do that, you're going to hell. If you think this, you're going to hell. Um, my great grandmother, who raised me mostly, she didn't teach it to me like that. She taught it to me like, if you fuck up, you're okay. You're still good. Just do better next time. Correct it and do better. She never once uttered the words, you're going to go to hell if you do this or you don't do that. She taught me that, forgiveness and grace, that's what God's about. And she walked that walk. She was one of the most patient, forgiving people to a fault. Sometimes then, and even when I think back sometimes now, I go, God, man, like I have done what she did? Like that's and she was just so full of wisdom and just genuineness all around. She was In my view, she was like a saint. So I go to church, again, not all the time, but pretty frequently. It connects me back with her in a way, right? It reminds me, it just makes me feel comfortable again. And I always learn or see a new perspective, during the sermon, especially. And so on this day, I was in church, and the priest was giving a sermon about a Bible passage, and he's trying to um, explain the meaning behind the passage. And so he was talking about how we need to forgive ourselves and practice forgiving ourselves and other people. And he brought up a few examples. He brought up, a dog, it barks, it's being a dog. Uh, a cat meowing, being a cat. And then he went even deeper, a little more controversial. You know, Sharks kill things and eat things. It's just being a shark. Um, Snakes bite. Sometimes they kill people. It's just being a snake. It doesn't know that it's doing anything wrong. It's just being a snake. And then he got to people, and he said, as people, we're capable of all of these things. We're capable of doing amazing things, and we're also capable of doing really bad things, and we're capable of hurting people. We're capable of doing harm to people. We're capable of so many things. We're the thing in the world that we need to practice forgiving and extending understanding the most. And he goes, and so this is when he said, we all go through things emotionally, mentally. We make mistakes. We hurt people. We do things that we regret. Sometimes it harms people. He goes, but at the end of the day, we have to remind ourselves that we're just being human. We're humaning. That's all we're doing. And I went, wow. And to me, that's what this record was all about. It was every record that I've ever made was about being human, and humaning. And that's always the message that I've wanted to push out to people that are listening to the lyrics is you may be going through this, you may be experiencing that, you may have screwed up and fucked up here and there. I've done those things too, right? And there are plenty of other people out there, probably everybody, that have done the same things. Maybe not the exact same things, but similar. And that's what we're doing. We're just being human. We're just humaning. And it was just, he said it in such a way that just brought a comfort and a peace that I always hope that anyone listening to our music gets out of it, if anything.
One of the standouts, I think, was one of the great qualities about Humanin is your lyricism and just how genuine you sound on it.
Mm.
It's it feels like you're literally pulling out pages from a diary. So the takeaways that I got from it were it was like kind of like an examination on like the human condition. So like you're looking at like self-reflection, self-deprecation, uh, unhealthy fixations on things that you might want, but it might not even be good for you.
Yeah.
And then obviously like overcoming troubles, and then healing at the end of it. So what was, I know you said it earlier that um, you kind of you have a catalyst and it'll kind of blossom, but what was the perspective going into this as a lyricist?
Well, so at that time when I was writing them, I'd say 95% of the songs. I'm trying to think. I think, with the exception of Higher, was off topic compared to rest the songs on the record and what inspired them. But at that time, I was in a relationship that really had become really toxic, for the both of us. And there was a struggle. A lot of these songs were inspired by my own struggle, by my own experience, what my struggles and challenges were as I saw them, and as I experienced them. And it a lot of those songs lyrically just came pouring out. It, there were some moments where it got to the point where I would think to myself, like, I don't know what else more to say about all of the things that I've experienced in this relationship. Surely there can't be any more. I mean, I've done X amount of songs about this already on this record, but sure enough, I'd find something else, another little nugget of something that would kind of boil up to the top. And what I realized is that a lot of people go through a lot of the same things in relationships. And I guess the difference is that even with my own friends, like, I talk about my relationships. Like, I'm not ashamed of the mistakes that I make. I own them. I don't make excuses for them. I don't blame other people. I don't blame circumstances or, well, they did this and that made me like, I don't do that. Like, I don't find any benefit in looking externally for reasons why we do things. It's interesting that when when we do something great, you know, oftentimes we love to take the credit for it. We don't point to anybody else. So, well, that's seldom does that happen. But when we're talking about a mistake, well, then it's all external. Well, this did it, that did it, this person did this person did this, they said this, and so for me, like, I've never subscribed to that. Like, I own my shit. I know I'm not perfect. I know I don't always do things perfect. I know I don't always make the best decisions in that particular moment. Or maybe I should say, I made the best decision for that moment, but maybe could have made a better one had I reflected on it a little bit more. And so that's what really, that relationship and the writing of this record taught me. It taught me that, there really, there's no mistakes per se. There are only mistakes if you don't learn something or get something out of it. Then it's a mistake. And then it gets to failure, which I talk about a lot. I hate failing. I'm a really, I'm not a good sport when it comes to failing on anything. I'm very competitive and I have a lot of pride and I put a lot of effort into things. And so when something fails, I always feel like I could have done something more or done better. And the answer to that is not always. There are plenty of times, I'm sure you can relate to. I'm sure anybody listening to this can relate. Like, there are plenty of things that we have put our all into, and it still didn't work out the way we wanted it to. That doesn't. It's not a. It's not a. Has nothing to do with our effort or whether we're good enough or doing enough. Sometimes it just doesn't work out just because. Just because. And I have a hard time oftentimes accepting just because. I've always been a, here's the problem, let's fix it, type of person. Or, okay, I fucked up. Let me retool here. Let me reapproach. go back, try again type thing. And so the spirit of this record, again, the relationship was the initial inspiration. But as I wrote the lyrics, and especially, as I was listening back to it as we recorded it, I started to realize again, like, it's not the relationship, it's the things underneath that I'm learning, that I'm wrestling with, that I'm having trouble sitting with, that I'm having trouble accepting and shaking hands and making friends with. But things that are necessary for me to do that with, I have to accept and be okay and figure out a way out. Otherwise, you stay stuck in that place. And so the record was very therapeutic in that regard. It helped me release a lot of the things that um, had been really bothering me for a long time in that relationship. I mean, it went back and forth for a good year and a half, of back and forth, just really toxic.
So you got some closure out of when you finished humaning. You got some closure and a better understanding of
Absolutely.
it all. Mm.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it happened even during the writing of it. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to open up about it. Like even with friends or fans, that I met, because they're listening to lyrics, I get people that go, dude, wow. And I'm listening to like the emotions that you're singing in your lyrics, and it must have been really tough what you were going through. And they can relate to that. Like I've been in similar situations, they'll tell me. And again, I mean, that to me is the magic of music. The beauty of it is when you can relate to the degree where you feel better. Not better like it makes all the pain go away, but it lessens it a lot to where it's manageable, and at least you see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That there is a point that you can get to where you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And eventually you get there. Um, it some look at it as a consequence of sorts. Um, if you keep doing the same things over and over and over again, whether you're aware of it or not, eventually there'll be some sort of consequence, whether positive or negative, right? There's going to be something will result from it. So I think um, it was a big lesson in, what, Will, you don't like failing, but guess what? You're going to learn to fail. And you're going to learn that failure isn't the bad thing that you think it is. It may be disappointing because maybe doesn't follow the timeline that you'd like, but you're going to learn a lot of things through this failure that you don't know right now, that's going to cause you to have the success that you're wanting to have, and maybe even more so than what you thought it could be. So I've learned to have a different relationship with that, and it's not perfect. Um, but nothing's perfect, which is the other thing that I wrestle with on a personal level. Perfection, like everything's got to be right, everything's got to be this, it's got to be that, and the answer to that is it doesn't. You just have to show up and do your 100% best. That's all you can expect and
Yeah.
do. And outside of that, it's out of my hands. That's what out of my hands was. It was inspired by that. That realization. There's just so many little nuggets, and some of those songs. Similarly, what I told you about singing some of our older catalog on this tour, where I went, holy shit, I get it. Same thing on this record. Like I listen to some of these now and I go, now I fully understand, what I was trying to express
Yeah.
subconsciously. songs like um Mistakes I Always Make, like that's one. And even Higher, like Higher was among I think that was the last song that when we were recording it in Nashville with Johnny.K, that was one of the last songs I had like a verse of lyrics, and I had Higher in the chorus, but that was it. Like I didn't have any other words. I didn't have a second verse, nothing. And so when we got to that song, I was like, Higher. Well, that doesn't line up with any of the other things that I'm talking about this record. So it, I'm not sure that that's where this song wants to go. But then I just started writing, and Johnny.K would at times say, I don't know about that line. I think you come up with something better. And then I would just at that point I was so gassed creatively. I was literally just writing stuff, like just stuff that felt right, even though I didn't know what it meant. But as I listen to that song now and have listened to it many times, what that song is telling me is it's telling me about my resilience and my history with resilience, my history with every time something has failed or the odds have been against me, I've always been able to, or the universe or whatever it is you want to call it, it's always worked out. And I've always been able to create something from nothing, right? And that's what that song is really about. And when I listen to it, that's one of the songs on the record that actually drives me. Like it reminds me, like, hey, you know, oftentimes I get questions such as, do you think, what do you think the chances are that you'll succeed the same or better than the last time you were trying to do this? And that's a real question that I know a lot of artists think about. Even when there has been no hiatus, just going from record to record, it's, man, can I make a record as good or better than the last one? Like that's a real anxiety. And I think coming back to that realization, that truth that I did this before, I can do it again, right? Nothing's changed. It's still me. In fact, I probably know more today. Well, I know I know more, not probably, way more today than I did then. And so you can take a spark and turn it into fire. Like that was where that line came from. And that, like I said, I think that's the one song that's the anomaly on the record. And I like where we placed it because it kind of breaks up the thought pattern in a in
Yeah.
a in a weird way. But it also sounded good. It just kind of flowed into the record, but it just naturally. It's always interesting to me how things work themselves out.
Hmm.
That never amazes me. Never
Yeah.
ceases to amaze me, I should say.
Yeah. I, me personally, as a listener, I tend not to. I'm a musician first, so I listen to instrumentals generally. I don't generally listen to lyrics. It has to be a pretty special album for me to do that. But I'm very susceptible to authenticity, and there's a lot of authenticity on this, which made me gravitate towards the lyrics. Just every aspect from your side is just it just feels like it's your heart on your sleeve, and it does really make the music. It brings it to a new level, in my
Well,
opinion,
I
anyway.
appreciate that. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mm.
That means a lot. Again, coming from someone like yourself, I mean, I know you pay a lot of attention to the details, but just listening to you, you can tell that you pay a lot of attention to the emotive things that are coming out of a song, which is important. How many, there's a gazillion songs out there, that we can go on Spotify or Apple Music right now and go, fuck, these songs sound amazing. But do they emote or elicit any kind of emotional response? I mean, there's not many songs that, well, actually, there are. There's a lot of songs that don't sound that great, but they move you. I mean, old Led Zeppelin and Beatles records, I mean, phonetically, I mean, fidelity wise, they don't even measure up to the production standards of today,
No.
but they move you. But they move you. Neil Young's another great example.
Yeah.
Technically, not a great singer at all. Sings flat and sharp a lot of the time, but he moves you with his heart, right? Like there's something about how he does it that you go, same thing, Bob Dylan. Odd, but there's something about what he does and what he's saying and the music that he's writing and he's playing. It's emoting emotion that you can't escape it. You can't, and you don't have to like their music, right?
No.
But you can understand why they're as popular as they are. You get it.
It's like when Johnny Cash covered "Hurt," the Nine Inch Nails song. That's
Right.
genuine emotion. Mm.
Right. Yeah. And I think, so I appreciate, the fact that for you that you've been able to, that's done that for you. And, um, as a lyricist and songwriter, that's what you hope for. You hope that, trying to write a hit song, you're kind of chasing your tail trying to do that. The best approach, I always tell this to newer bands, just write things that are authentic to you, that you love, that represent you as a person, as an artist, and don't worry about whether it's a single or not a single. Like, just do what you love, and the best you can do is doing the best you can do and hoping that the rest of the world that listens to it feels and sees it and hears it the same way you do. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I even said it in the last interview. How obviously when we first did our first interview, it was when Where You came out, and I
Mhm.
commented on how just incredible it sounded from a production point of view. So I just want to touch on that side because I do find it interesting. Like to me, this is the best sounding album of the year. There's just something about it. It just feels really warm, um, and just everything sounds rich. The
Yeah.
levels, the mixing is great. So was it recorded analog, digital? Was it a mixture of the both of the two? And what was the recording process like with Johnny K? Was he whipping you for 100 takes so you got the best one?
I think, well, so we started in Florida at our drummer's studio, and we were going to produce it on our own. And so we went there and we recorded all the drum tracks. We recorded most of the basic rhythm guitar tracks and a couple of bass tracks. And then the plan was is I was going to come home, clean everything up, and then we'd resume recording on our own. And because I was so enmeshed in that relationship that I was trying to salvage and fix and repair, and between regular life stuff, the album kind of went back burner without me even realizing it. I just wasn't working on it. I just didn't have the attention and the focus to spend on it. And a good friend of mine said, "What's going on with the record?" And I said, "Oh, you know, it's just sitting. I need to really focus and start working on it." And a couple weeks later, I was asked again, and my same friend said, "Listen, you're not in a you're not in a headspace clearly to finish this record, and the songs are so good. Like, you need to find somebody that will finish it. And I said, well, that means I'm going to have to find a producer, and that means it's going to cost me a nice chunk of money, which I don't really have. Um, and when I hung up, I thought about it, and I thought to myself, they're right. And so I put a call out to Bob Marlette, who I love, is great producer. And he lives here in LA. Great guy, very talented. And I also sent a message to Johnny K. And I went and I met with Bob Marlette, and he made some suggestions. We talked for a long time. I went over to his house. We sat and caught up. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, but he made some really good suggestions. And then I talked to Johnny K a couple days later, and he was like, when do we start? Like, what do you got? Where are you at with it? And I explained to him what I had, where the record was. And so we came up with a budget, and it took me a little bit, to get the rest of the financing together. But he got started on it anyways, because that's the kind of guy he is. He got started on it anyways, trusting that everything would fall in line, and it did. And so we went to Nashville, and he spent a lot of time cleaning up. So we had the drums, as I told you. He thought the drums sounded great. We did a great job recording them. He liked the arrangements for the most part. We did tweak a little bit afterwards, but we spent a lot of our time. He wasn't overly thrilled about the guitar tones we had for rhythm guitars, so he wanted to beef those up and revisit that. So we did that. Got the guitar leads in there, got the bass in there, because we didn't have really any bass tracked prior. And all of that got done in probably within the first week. The rest of the 3 weeks that I was there was really centered around vocals. And I think if Johnny K were on this call right now, he would say to you that he doesn't really have to do much whipping with me, because I'm the one that's like, let me do it again. Let me do it again. And he'll be like, well, we already got it, but if you want to do it again, go for it. Like, I like giving the producer multiple great options instead of just one. And oftentimes it'll be the one that they've heard first, but sometimes they'll be like, well, you know what, that one, maybe it's a combination of both, or a combination of these 3 or 4 great ones that you did. So that's how I like to work. And so what he is really good at and of value to me was when I was writing lyrics, and melodies, there were a handful of times where he said, I think you can do better. I've heard you do better. Try again. And before he even said that, I would know that, but he would just verify, like, yep. So he's really good at challenging you in that way, and not in an aggressive way that's obnoxious. He's not like a heavy iron fisted. He's very thoughtful in his critique and how he coaches an artist through. And so I think he does a phenomenal job with that. And I think, he did a great job on our second record too with that. And I think he did a great job here again with it with Humaning. And what I really like, one of the things we talked about when we discussed him finishing this record was, two obviously fans have loved that record for a long time now. The one thing that we both decided that we wanted to do differently on this record, a little bit differently than we did on the second record, is we wanted to not lean as much on the production as we did on the second record. We wanted it to be we still wanted it to have some sheen and modern feel to it, but we wanted it to also sound a little more organic. Um, and what we sound like live, like a good representation of what we sound like. Like if I sat here right now and sang to you any of those songs, it's going to sound almost exactly like what you heard here on the record. Like that's what I sound like. That's how I sing. Um, those are performances. You know, they're not. I mean, some of them we had to go back and fix little things here and there, sure. But by and large, like these are performances distilled and comped, you know, into one track. And so in that regard, whereas on the second record, we really went through everything with a fine tooth comb, guitars, drums, vocals, everything. Like everything had to be perfect. And we really took the mindset of let's do the best we can because we think that our best is pretty fucking good if we just let that shine. And I think that's what's special about this record is you're hearing guys that are you're hearing performances of things and not super produced, cut up, altered. Like it is that, right? And it took us couple takes, sometimes a handful or two takes, you know, to get there, but we got there and all just doing what we do the best that we can.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And as we've said in the previous interview, um, a lot of bands are reliant on sounds that are very similar. I think that's what makes Human stand out is that organic approach and that kind of traditional mindset. Um, that's where I feel it stands out the most.
Yeah.
From right, so what's your favorite track on here from an instrumental point of view, and then what's your favorite? Oh well, and so instrumentally and vocally, what's your favorite song, and what's your favorite song lyrically?
Mm. Um, that's a tough one. You know, on previous records, this would have been an easier question. Um, if I had to pick one, hmm.
It's funny, Will. This right now actually feeds into when I did the review. I
Mhm.
mentioned how two and letting go they have like really big highs,
Yeah.
whereas with human in all the songs just seem to be it's like a plateau, but like of a high standard of songwriting. So it's like
Mhm.
I know what you're saying last time now because it's like the context of actually hearing it that there's you can't really how do I articulate it? Every song's just great and it it gives the more you go back to it gives back. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you sat there try to pick one. It's just like, well, they're all great.
I I think one of my favorite songs, and again, like I'm by no means saying that I dislike an anthem. Maybe it's a tough
Hmm.
question, but I think one of the ones that really like just shouts at me and says, "Hey, listen to me," is "I'm okay."
Fears we won't know any other way until end days. I pray to talk to God.
In terms of like heavy rock, like
Yeah,
musically, it's got the perfect amount, in my opinion, of like aggressive, but without being obnoxious. And then I just, you know, it just flows. The song just flows, and I love the chorus, and I love the message behind the chorus. I think that's a really standout track. But I mean, even "What Are You Waiting For" is a great one. "Unlost," the last song on the record.
So
I mean,
with Unlost,
yeah.
it might just be my wacky ears, but there feels like there's like a gospel element. You know, where it hits the crescendo at the end. It feels almost gospel. Is that what you were going for?
A friend of mine told me, goes, there's no such word as unlost. And I go, I know. I made that up, completely made it up, but it felt natural to me. Like when I finally came to terms with the relationship that I was in at the time was unsalvageable, and that all of the disappointment, frustration, pain, hope was not going to come to fruition. And I accepted that. And I learned that I was going to have to sit in that. The term unlost, like it didn't, when I finally came to terms with it and accepted it, it felt like, because I felt like I was lost. Like I was just meandering through, like, trying to patch this here and band-aid this here and go here. Like it felt like I was lost. And so when I got to that point where this isn't going to get better, at least not right now, it's not going to. There was that sense where I felt unlost. Like it was that freeing, like, holy shit. Now that doesn't make things better, but it gives you this clarity that, excuse me, makes it possible for you to kind of see in the dark again, right? And it's like the not finding yourself, but finding reality. I always talk with people about reality. Like there's there's what we say we want, there's what we think we want, or there's what we think is happening and what we say we want to be happening. But then there's reality. Like, what does reality say? And reality oftentimes has a very different point of view and perception than we oftentimes perceive. Like, for example, like sometimes I have a tendency to shop, and go buy stuff. Like I've got millions of dollars. Well, I don't. So reality will remind me when that bill comes in, like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's those checks. And so Unlost is kind of, that's what that song is. And sometimes we don't like reality, or we wish it were different. But when we accept reality as it is, then that's when you start to, again, it doesn't take all the sting away and the pain or heartache or whatever it is you're experiencing, but it does now set a foundation to where you can operate from cleanly. Like, I guess it's rock bottom. When you hit that rock bottom, it's the old saying, the only way you can go is up from here, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Unlost is about. And so, yeah, it's a good friend of mine was saying, dude, that is such a profound song. I don't even think you have any idea of how profound that song really is. And I'm listening to him, I'm like, shit, maybe I need to go back and listen to it. But I can see what he means by that now. And still the other week called me and was like, you need to be talking about that song more. Like that is fucking, and this is a guy that professionally, he's an executive coach. He works for coaches, executives, and CEOs at like Fox Sports News, Hulu, Sony. Like, I mean, he's a wizard when it comes to this stuff, and he's not even a big rock music fan. But when he heard the lyrics, he's like, dude, this song. He's like, like, yeah, the word doesn't exist. He goes, but what a great word that you invented, and the meaning behind it, at least from how I'm hearing it, like my interpretation, like it's fucking brilliant, and the music fits perfectly. Like it's dark. It's got this dark, trudgy, really sticky, just uncomfortable, tense, and then it just goes into this, like you've just shaken all that off, and you're like, here I am, I'm out, I made it.
I lived through it all.
Right?
You've articulated that really well. It is a really, really well composed track. Like you just said there, there's like a tension, and I think Aaron does two solos in it. I think he like kind of teases you halfway through, and then he lets loose in the second half, and then obviously you just absolutely you just go crazy with your vocals as well. It's just such a cathartic finish. It is a great way to finish the album.
And that was the other word that my friend used, very cathartic. Very cathartic.
It really is. Mm.
And again,
Yeah,
he's not even a fan of like, he doesn't listen to rock music. Like he was listening to it because he knows me and he just wanted to like see and experience like what I'm doing, and of all the songs, and he thought there were some great sounding songs, but that was one he just went, dude, I can't stop listening to it. Like it's just so profoundly intelligent, and like that was like a gift. And he was it wasn't making funny, but he was teasing me. He's like, dude, you don't even realize what you wrote in that song. Like, and he's right. Like again, as I told you before, oftentimes I write things and I don't fully understand myself. I'm just, my hands just moving, and I'm just putting it down. And oftentimes I don't realize. I can tell you what inspired it, but a lot of times I'm not really clear about what's underneath that I'm really trying to describe or talk about or emote. And that's one of those songs that I think there's more to it that I'm still understanding about it. And there's probably people that understand it better than I do. Obviously, my friend is one of those people. But I love that. I mean, it's kind of like the Bible, right? Not that my record is the Bible in the way that a lot of people might be hearing or taking it now. It's not, I don't mean it that it's a holy piece of scripture, but what I mean by that is that as most people know, the Bible is written in such a way that I believe it's written in such a way that it's not necessarily meant to be lived literally, right? It's the lessons underneath the scriptures, right? Like that's why the pastors or priests will sort of break down, that's what Bible studies they do. They break down what they think the meaning is of each passage, of something Jesus said or somebody said. Same thing with music, I think, is we're really breaking down the meaning of what we thinking how it applied to life to make or to live a better life. And I feel like, at least for me and a lot of people out there that have listened to Humaning, similarly, like I think people have caught on or starting to catch on to the style of my writing, that it's not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to be listened to and distilled and adapted to and find meaning in. Like, it's almost like a bit of a puzzle or a riddle, like, and I think though that, to me, all my favorite bands did that for me, like, I think I kind of know what the song's about, but here's what it means to me. And I've gotten really down deep into rabbit holes over stuff like that, with Led Zeppelin songs or Beatles songs or Jeff Buckley songs or all the stuff I listen to. So, and then there's a lot of bands where I don't even like, I have no idea what this song could mean, like, and it doesn't spark any interest for me to dig into it either. So I'm just glad that we were able to create something sonically, that people like and appreciate. And I'm glad that I was able to, back that up with lyrics that means something. It's not just throwaway, like, oh yeah, it's a great song. Okay, like, next, something that people can like grab and hold on to, and there's it's tangible.
I'm one of those suckers that still likes to support bands by buying CDs and things like that. So, is Humaning getting a physical release?
Yeah, so sometime early next year, which I know we're pretty close. We're gonna do a small vinyl run and I think a small CD run. I'm not sure if we're gonna do them both at the same time. We might do them a little bit separately, or some space them out between.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. I'm going back and forth about whether, do we use the same album cover? Do we make a different album cover? We had this
cool.
really great artist that hand drew a show poster for us, and we meant to get them out when we went on tour with Saliva, but unfortunately they FedEx choked, and I didn't end up getting them until I got back home from tour. So I have them here, and I was just looking at all the detail that went into what this person created, and I'm just like, wow, like it must have taken days. Like, it's literally like, so I'm thinking about maybe releasing a limited edition vinyl of that, because to put it on CD wouldn't do it justice to have it that small, but it would be cool, like, to have it big and also get his name out there. He's very talented. So I don't know, maybe a couple of collector edition type things,
I definitely think that alternate artwork thing's a great incentive. Yeah. It's definitely making me want to buy it.
Yeah, no, I think so. We're gonna do that next year. I'm not sure exactly when, but early next year we're gonna start. I'll save one for you.
Cool. I'll be buying it. That's cool. I've got two more questions. This one is a bit of a heavy one, but then the one after that's easy. So, the context behind this, I think you're one of the most qualified people to answer it because you've been in the trenches of the music industry for like 3 decades or near enough there. In 2000, Lars Ulrich infamously sued Napster for copyright infringement, and there was this knee-jerk reaction from people that thought it was more motivated by greed. But to me, especially looking at it now, it feels more like it was a warning to the industry, and he was just looking out for the prosperity and preservation for future generations. So, what were your thoughts on it back then, and have they changed now?
I had never disagreed with. I understood what he was trying to do then, and you're right. A lot of people, I think, fans, they they viewed it differently. Just as you said, big band, greedy. Um, I Here's what I do know. I think that if Napster never existed, where, in other words, where music could be just downloaded for free, I'll even go so far as to say if Spotify didn't exist, if Apple Music didn't exist, and you were still buying digital downloads, I would venture to say that concert ticket prices would would be significantly less today than
100%.
what they are.
Yeah.
Because the reason why ticket prices are higher is because bands are charging more to the promoters to do the shows, and they're doing it because they're trying to make up for all of the revenue loss. And I think I think the I think the perspective gets lost with most people, and through no fault of their own. Um, just simply because they're not aware or understand the economics of how the music business works. Um, so what happens? Part of what happens is because bands are trying to make up for revenue lost. It's got to be made up somewhere, right? It's just like what we do with our personal finances. If we spend too much there, we got to cut back somewhere else, right? It's the same concept. Well, here's some perspective for anyone listening to this, to just kind of have a better picture. So before Spotify and music streaming, when you had to buy a digital download, what was 99 cents a song or something, right? Or $10 for the whole album, right? So the math would go, just I'm going to use Apple just for ease of explanation, but so Apple would take 30%. So now you got $7, right? So $7 would go to the label, and then out of that $7, the label would take a certain amount, and then the rest the artist would get. So, but let's look at it from an independent artist standpoint. Let's look at it as if Earshot weren't on a record label and we put out the record independently, just like we have. So, if streaming didn't exist and people wanted to listen to our record, they'd have to buy it, either $10 or buy the song for 99 cents. So, for example, in the first 2 weeks that Human Ink came out on Spotify alone, we hit over 600,000 streams. Okay, so imagine for 1 second if you couldn't stream it, but you had to buy it. 600,000 times $1, well, it's $600,000. If it's the whole album, which it was, that's what the entire album got streamed. So times $10. So you start to see the math. And and so there's a lot of revenue being lost because streaming, the free download thing. And I think Lars was, as you said, he was trying to fire the warning shot up in the air in defense of artists, and not the Metallicas. I mean, Metallica's surviving just fine. They've shown that. I don't think it was ever about them. I think it
That's
was. I think it was about Lars genuinely trying to preserve the future of music with new artists. Because how are we going to get the next Metallicas if they can't make enough money to live, to have a family, to have kids, to send them to school, to buy clothes for them,
yeah.
to put gas in the car, to keep the heat on. You got to make money for these things. And I think that, oftentimes musicians and artists kind of get looked at as they're ancillary, right? They're musicians, they'll be fine. We don't think about, you know, just because we're a musician doesn't mean we don't want to have a family, we don't want a house, we don't want kids, that we don't want to put them through prestigious colleges. And all that takes money. There's not a lot of bands that are able to do those things. I mean, even for us, I mean, we make enough on the road to pay for expenses. Like on the Saliva tour, we personally made no money. All of the money we made went into just being on tour to pay the bills. On tour, the bus, the gas, the driver, um, the person that we had out selling merch and putting together the awesome videos that he put together, hotels, like all of that. Like we made zero in our pocket. Like it was just enough, and we're fortunate. If we were a brand new band, it would cost us money. There wouldn't even be break. Forget about putting money in your pocket. You'd actually be pulling money out of your pocket to even go out and do anything. So, I think it's just, and again, it's through nobody's fault. It's just that a lot of people don't realize and understand the economics of being in a band, and what the expenses are. Like it's not just, oh, let's hop in a van or a bus and just go play some shows. Like there's a lot of expense behind it, and it's more expensive today to tour than it was even 6 years ago. It's literally doubled, if not tripled. Like you used to be able to get an average bus for $350, $400 a day, and that's still a lot. But today, you can't find anything under $800 a day. I mean, that's the jump. I mean, and then you got fuel. Fuel, I mean, in most places is high, in some places it's lower, but there's so much that goes into touring, and when you're not selling music and all you have to rely on is touring, makes it tough. Really, really tough. So
That's not. It's not even including how expensive it is to record.
right, and that's a lot of money too, and so you're spending money on things that at best is going to take a long time for you to get it back, right? Like that's how I looked at financing humaning. Was I knew I wasn't going to get it back probably in 1 to 2 years before I saw it back. Um, if enough people cared about the record to listen
Yeah.
to it, that'd be the best case. At worst case, I'm just going to lose it. Um, it is. It's expensive.
I don't know if it's true. I read something a couple of days ago. Spotify, if you get 1 million streams,
Mhm.
the band only pockets. Well, I'm assuming it's the band. They only pocket 3.5 grand for 1 million streams. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was like, it's crazy.
I don't even think it's. I don't even think it's that. I think that's very inaccurate. So the breakdown is 0.006 of a cent per stream.
It's terrible, and it's
And also I'll say, if if it were true that 1 million streams got you 300 grand, then I'd be pretty
No,
wealthy.
did I say 300 grand? I meant 3,500. Not
Oh,
free.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds probably about right.
yeah, that's crazy.
3,500.
That
Yeah,
is,
that sounds pretty close.
yeah, crazy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the reason why I brought it up, the whole reason why I brought it up is because there's a lot of artists these days that try to create a movement to boycott streaming services like Spotify, because they ultimately have a monopoly over artists and they're paying them peanuts. But it does make you wonder, what would be if they had listened, if the industry had been quick on its feet and listened to Lars, what would the climate look like now? So I just thought,
I don't know that an artist pulling their music off of any streaming service is gonna be helpful to them or move the needle for anybody. The
no,
thing
I
is,
agree.
is that the thing is that um, it's not just the companies. It's that the companies have become convenient to people that listen to music. So what you're really talking about, just so you're removing your music off of Spotify. Okay, well, great. Now, no, now a bunch of people can't listen to your music anymore because
Yeah,
most people are not going. I mean, unless you're Taylor Swift or Metallica, nobody's going to go inconvenience themselves to go to yet another place, download probably another app, and sign up for it just to listen to a song that they barely even know anything about. Like it's just there's just not enough there.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean that I agree with what Spotify pays. I just don't think that's the way. I don't think pulling music off of it, unless I think change is going to have to come from people when people are more willing to move to a different way of consuming music, just like what happened with CDs. People went from CDs and went, okay, yeah, streaming is better. All right, so we'll ditch all the thousands of dollars we invested in buying plastic discs and we'll go to streaming. Like people were given an alternative that was convenient. So really what would need to happen is there would need to be a new stream because I don't think the streaming is ever going to go away. It's just too
mm,
convenient. I think it's going to take for any meaningful change. It's going to take somebody or a company to come up with a new structure, a way that's convenient for fans to listen to music, just like it is with Spotify and Apple Music, but is also focused on being artist friendly with what they pay. That's going to be the next thing, whatever that is, and maybe it'll be these companies. Maybe they'll redo their payout structure, and it'll be the same companies, or somebody will come along eventually. It always happens. Nothing stays the same forever. The game will change eventually again, and where it goes and how it happens, none of us will really know. But I do know that it will change again. But I don't think that pulling music off of Spotify is uh,
I
not
agree.
making much more.
And you're actually dead on the mark because I am, like I said just before, I will support bands that I like as much as possible. But even I have Spotify Premium,
Mhm.
or I have my MP3 player. So, but it's like if a band decides, oh, I'm gonna just take my stuff off Spotify or whatever, it does become a problem when I'm like, well, I'm not gonna go somewhere else. Like even I have uh, see that kind of stuff as an inconvenience. So you did right with that. The stand to gain nothing from doing that.
Yeah,
So I definitely
and
agree.
and it's not fans' fault. I mean, they're just
No,
consuming. They're just consuming what's given to them. I mean, um, people like yourself. You're paying. What they're telling you that they want, so you don't have to hear commercials and have better quality audio, whatever it is that they offer. So you're doing your part. You have no control over what they do with that money or where it goes and who sees it, right? Nor is it anything you should have to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. So, but I think I like streaming. I also miss the physical tangibleness, though. I wish and I hope that one day we can see both cohabitate equally.
Well, I
Um,
feel like
but then that would mean people would have to buy CD players again, and nobody wants to do that. But there
yeah,
has to be a way. I mean, like the days of when you used to get a CD or a vinyl and you'd bust it open and you'd open it up and you'd unfold it and you'd see the pictures and the lyrics and you'd see all the credits and where it was recorded and
Hmm.
like all of that it was like Christmas Day when you bought a record and got home with it and opened it, and that's gone, sadly. Like streaming doesn't offer that
That's
anymore.
just what I
It
was
never
about to
did.
say. Yeah, it's just what I was about to say. It's streaming as a whole has devalued the experience itself.
Mhm.
And like you say, like go to a record shop, you go to buy it. You're investing your time. It's not just a matter of just like the accessibility of Spotify just makes everything disposable. But when you're making the effort to go to a music shop, back in the day, you walk to a music shop, you pick up that
Yeah,
record, and you're going home. You're investing a lot of time and money even before you even listen to it. So, and
yeah,
it's some. I mean, like I say, I'm nearly touching 40, so it's something I miss a lot. I do miss, there's a couple of record shops dotted around, but it's not what
yeah.
it used to be. It's really sad to see. Um, yeah,
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm always thinking of ideas and ways. I haven't come up with anything obviously concrete yet, but it's sort of been a little bit of a quest of mine to try to like how do you bring that experience back, to people
yeah,
again in some way, shape, or form. Where it's you can't wait to like get it in your hands and open it and like I don't know. It seems like there just has to be there has to be some new clever way that makes it exciting for fans, easy, convenient, and also has a little more something behind it, financially for artists to support
yeah,
themselves,
yeah,
have a life, um, just like everybody else, someone who goes to school and gets a job as a CEO or whatever, like they're making great money.
yeah.
Um, you know, artists should be able to have the same opportunity
I agree.
without being called greedy, without being called greedy, um, or or ashamed for wanting to make money to have a life. Like I think all of that, to a degree, some of that is what we've seen for quite some time now. And I think dating back to the Lars Ulrich thing, unfortunately, I think he was well intended. I genuinely think that, and what he
Yeah,
was saying at the time. But ever since then, it seems like there's been this perception that rock stars are greedy now.
no,
And
yeah,
if you ask for money or say that you want to make money or you want to charge for something, well, then now you're just being greedy. And at the same time, we see Taylor Swift making billions, literally, of dollars, and nobody's calling Taylor Swift greedy. Her fans love her. They worship the ground she walks on, almost quite literally. So it's just interesting. And I understand that's also a different genre of music. So maybe it has to do with, her fans have a different point of view versus people that listen to rock music that, decry greed. Anytime an artist says, hey, we want to make money doing this. So I don't know. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I think that artists and fans want the same things. I think what gets in the way are is the business side of things. Streaming companies, concert promoters, some of them, not all of them. Some record companies, not all of them, some of them. You know, unfortunately, that stuff gets in the way. Um,
As I said,
and
because you're because you've been in the business with both sides, would you say the industry is actually worse off now than it was when you first started, or is it about the same in terms of the way the artists get shafted?
in some ways, I love these questions, by the way, because I talk about these topics with people all the time. In some ways, the industry's better, right? So you don't. The good news is you don't need a record label anymore to put out music if you're an artist or songwriter, right? And there are several ways to get your music out there and promote it. It's sort of equal footing, and in some ways it's not. So what's not as good is the one thing the record labels did for the world, all of us, is they scouted out and curated the best music, the best artists that were out there in whatever genre of music you listen to. So if you were rock, they found the best rock bands that were out there. They found, if you like pop, they found the best pop artists that were out there. And they curated them, and they were right. I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, they were right. Right. And so what was helpful about that for people like you and I who listen to music, we didn't have to go and weed through like we do now, trying to find, well, what's new that I don't know about yet that I'm going to love. That's up to us now. And because everybody can make music and put it out, there's so much to sift through. But so I think what's really missing that's become worse is this. We don't have the labels doing the legwork of being able to showcase like this is the best of the best out there. You know, I think that's what's made it more difficult for any band that's starting, or even bands like us that are, you know, reactivating again. You'd be surprised how many messages I get frequently. Or even when we did the Saliva tour, people would go, we didn't even know you guys had a record out, or that you'd put out singles before this tour. We didn't even know you were going to be on this tour with Saliva. I mean, we're happy, surprised, but, and it's every time I scratch my head and I go, how did you not hear? Like Saliva's been promoting it. We've been promoting it. The promoter sometimes promotes it, but it's on Spotify. And so there's obviously some disconnect there, where there's a communication gap. And I think that it's because there's just so much out there. There's no focus on what people want to hear, the bands that people want to hear about, the bands that they care about hearing about. It's just become so much harder. Whereas, you know, labels did that for us back then. They communicated. They had. You remember those? Did you ever do those Columbia House records? Like get 12 CDs for a penny or whatever that deal was. See,
Yeah.
see that was the looking back on it, that was the infancy of marketing and promotion, like as we know it today with social media. Really what they were doing was they were giving you 12 CDs that cost them nothing. They were in record deals, they call them cutouts, right? And they allow for that. So like in our record deal, they had a budget for cutouts. So they were records that basically a cutout is a record that they're not technically selling, they're giving it away as a promotion, right? And they call that out because they don't want me going, hey, we had 100,000 CDs that we made, and we now only have 90,000. Well, we gave 10,000 away as promotion, so you can't expect us to pay you for CDs that we didn't even make money on. So that's why they call them cutouts. So as a marketing tool for labels, they would take, a certain amount of cutouts from all the artists on their roster, and then they would send those mailers out to people and say, hey, pick 12 CDs off of this list of artists for a penny. And of course, what a deal. We're gonna get 12
Yeah.
CDs for a penny, right? And all you had to do was pay the penny and give them your address, your name, and then it had other questions like, what other bands do you like? What genre of music do you listen to? How old are you? Male or female, right? And you send all that in, and for a penny, you're going, I got 12 CDs. And the label's going, we gave you 12 CDs that we're not having to pay for, but now you've helped us curate and market directly to you what you want to listen to. Now we know. And so they were able to do that back then. That's kind of tough to do nowadays. It does there's because there's no more records being sold. Like anybody, you can go on YouTube and listen to anything. You don't even have to pay for a subscription to a streaming company. If there's something you want to listen to, it's out there free. So there's no more incentive to give any of this information away anymore, which makes it harder though for artists, bands, record companies to be able to communicate to you, hey, there's a new Earshot record coming out, and we know that that's one of the bands that you love and want to hear. Instead, it's just all left to chance. Maybe they'll hear about it. Maybe they'll see it in their feed. Maybe they won't. You just never know. So that's I think the biggest impact, negatively speaking, that's happened in the music business that I would say is the biggest Achilles heel of everything.
That was great. I enjoyed that. Last question, mate. What's next for Earshot?
Well, like I told you, we did a deal with Judge and Jury, which is Howard Benson's label, and SV Records. So it's a joint partnership between two labels and Earshot. So the record was already done when we started talking to them, and and we were already on the cusp of releasing it. We had already released a couple of songs, so we weren't comfortable with just handing over the record, and then that would have meant the record probably wouldn't have come out this year. And we really wanted it to come out when we were on tour. So what we did was they offered to do a deal where let's just do 2 songs and let's just see how we do. And if you're happy and we're happy, then we'll do more. And if not, hey, no harm, no foul. So we have 2 songs coming out next year. One of them is going to be a full re-record of Wait, which it sounds amazing. It sounds, I mean, the song structurally is the same, but it sounds like a song that was recorded and written today, like sonically speaking. So it's a lot more, the guitars are a lot more dense, they're more modern sounding, everything about it, but it sounds really, 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 really good. I think people are really going to enjoy it. The twist to it, on top of everything kind of, being spruced up, sonically speaking, is that we've added a female guest vocalist that sings the second verse and sings with me on the choruses. That I kind of have to leave a little bit of a surprise to, but she sounds great. The song sounds amazing. And what I really love about this re-recording of Wait, I mean, as you know, that song gets a minimum of 500,000 streams every month, if not more. It's resonated so deeply with people that hear it. It's the song, when we play live, that people they fucking love it. And it's the song that people talk about when they come up to us, like, Weight saved my life. It's did this, did that, and it's just been that song. And what I like about the re-record of Weight is it's still like, again, the structure is the same, the words are all the same, the melodies are the same. But with the introduction of the female vocalist, what I love about that is it opens it up and it really becomes a universal song now, right? Like it's not some guy talking about not being able to wait, you know. And that's what that's what that song I've realized is about. It's about not waiting in situations, whether it's a relationship, work, career, not waiting to see if things change, but creating the change, right? I'm not waiting for it to happen. I'm going to go make it happen. That's the shift. That's what that song is about. And so with the female vocalist on it now, it makes it so much more universal, the message, you know, instead of just me going, well, I'm not doing it. Well, now a girl's going, well, I'm not either. Right. And now it's both of us, you know, it's just it's become such a more empowering song now, more so than it was before. And it already was. I think people are going to really, really, really love this song. I think we're going to radio with it even.
Cool.
And then we did a second song, which is an original song that I wrote with a gentleman by the name of Blair Daly in Nashville. Great rock songwriter. He's written the songs with Shinedown, Dorothy, Hailstorm. It's a great songwriter. I was in Nashville and we linked up and we wrote this song called Love Left. And it came out so good. So great. So both of those are coming out sometime early next year. And I can't wait for everyone to hear that.
I can't wait either. That's great. I know this has been a really long interview. If there's any consolation, this is the best interview I've ever done.
Well, you know,
fantastic.
You ask really great questions, so thank you.
I appreciate that.
All right, my man. I'll see you soon.
Man. Yeah.
All right,
see you later, bud. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.